So we have Jinada Rochelle, who she began her entrepreneurial career in August 2020. What awesome timing. Her business provides training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as a part of the training, she reviews organizations' policies from the lens of DEI. Prior to forming her business, she worked for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. She worked for the agency that investigated claims of unlawful discrimination. While at the Commonwealth, she provided training for businesses, community organizations, housing providers, and the general public. She also developed training for all newly hired investigators and held the first supervisory training class within her department. She worked directly with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission of Philadelphia Regional Office and with the U.S. Housing and Urban Development's FHAP program. She is a mother to a wonderful son who is also managing his own business. She has a bachelor's degrees from the University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And moderating today's conversation, we have Mariella Marie. Mariella Marie is a multimedia performance artist and activist focused on raising emotional intelligence through her work. California born, Georgia raised, and Argentina based. And so with that, I'm going to hand the mic right over to the both of you, welcome you here, and thank you for being here for today's conversation.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you, Power to Fly, for inviting us to have this conversation. Thank you, Jinada, for being here. And I know that Nicole gave that wonderful introduction, but I would like to just ask you if you want to share a little bit more about yourself before we roll into these awesome questions that folks have submitted offline. So feel free to self-promote, let us know what you're working on, let us know how we can follow you when we finish this conversation so we can be sure to support the good work that you're doing.
Absolutely. I am just really excited to be here today. What I can say about myself is that I have always had a passion for this work, always had a passion to fight for change. I grew up in a town where that time I was the only Black child in my graduating class from high school. So all the way from kindergarten through high school, I was the only Black child. So that kind of formed my views and formed how I wanted to do and what I wanted to do in my life. Growing up with me in my house with my mom and my sister, everybody in our house was Black, including Popeye. And so my parents made us really understand the importance of who we were and then how to fight for that change as we got to be adults.
Well, I'm super excited to learn more about your journey. Feel free to share more as you respond to these awesome questions that folks have submitted offline. But just to kick us off here, because the 30 minutes is going to fly by super quickly. So I want to make sure that we can dive a little deeper into, the backstory of you and why you decided to, do the work that you're doing now. So this question kind of rings true to that. What inspired you to start your own business that focuses on DEI?
The desire for change. Because working for the state of Pennsylvania, you can only do so much. So when change happened, they say life throws lemons at you, make lemonade. Well, I don't like lemonade, so I make cherry limeade because I don't want to do what everybody else does. I don't want to do what people say you should do. So when I sat down and looked at my options, I met with a really good friend of mine, and she said, this is the perfect timing for what you want to do. And so she gave me some strategies to go forward and gave me the confidence to go forward because I believe in reaching people who may not look like me, who may not have my background, who may not understand me, but who know that change can happen and want to be a part of that change. And so that is my mission with what I do with my business is looking at things that people don't see. Because when you are the majority or when you are in your same lane, you have blind spots that you don't see. And so part of what I do is allow businesses and people to see their blind spots, confront their blind spots, and then change them.
And that might sound scary for a lot of folks. Luckily enough, we've got social media on our side that's, kind of challenging us to consider our biases and to confront them. But what do you say to the person that might not want to look at that, might want to keep the peripherals on? What would you say to that person to invite them, to look deeper?
I would say that you really don't have a choice because change will happen one way or the other. So you can be in front of the change, involved in the change, or the change can happen to you, and then you get to be bitter and you wonder, why is this happening to me? And then you start to blame those people who you say are the other And those other people have nothing to do with you. They are living their lives to their fullest. So get on board with the change. It's time to, as I always would tell people, burn down the plantation. Just tear it down and let's start afresh.
Yes, and building bridges as well, right? And kind of erasing this line of them versus us, the other, it's your fault. We all got here together,
We
whether
did.
we like it or not. This is a collective effort. And I love that, the title of this conversation talks about the effort that it takes to really, create an inclusive workspace and an inclusive environment. How do you support BIPOC employees, or what advice can you give for companies to support BIPOC employees? And maybe you can give some examples for what you do in your company as well.
Yeah, be intentional. Like it just takes to be intentional. As I told one of my clients before, people are out there. You have to be intentional to look for them. So to say that you can't find any, they're not qualified, is to show your lack of intent and your lack of trying. Because for every organization that is majority white, there is a corresponding organization that may be majority Latinx or African American or Asian American or LGBTQIA. You just have to make that effort. And it's not that hard. Stop looking in your mirror and looking for you and look for something that is different than you. My experience has been most companies just stay in the same lane the entire time. They hire the same, they use the same recruiting methods, they speak to the same people, they use the same language. Well, that is leaving out millions of people who have a different background than you, but are nonetheless as qualified. So don't live in your echo chamber, go outside. So that could be reading books by authors of the community that you want to know about, studying people of the community, and then be humble enough to know I won't have all the answers, and be okay with being uncomfortable because we are always uncomfortable, and sit through that and allow that to process you. And then when you're in your business avenue, support those people, support your BIPOC people, support them completely, give them mentors and listen to them. Don't come to the answer, listen. Listening, active listening is a skill. And sometimes people who are in positions of authority, your presidents, your vice presidents, your directors of managements and things like that, they are so used to being an authority that they have forgotten the aspect of listening to people around them and then realizing they don't have all the answers. And that's okay. Go get some help. As I tell people, ask the experts. We are here to help you.
I love your response because I'm pretty much obsessed with speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence in our lives, but of course in the workplace as well, because worst case scenario that we see happening now is you have a bunch of people who are not emotionally intelligent building products or running teams, and it's all about the dollar bill. It's all about, supporting this old plantation foundation that you're saying we need to burn it down, right? So how can you challenge someone? Because what I hear from your response is that it takes time, right? And the way that, people are expected to be super productive, especially these days where you go from, Zoom, Zoom fatigue, Zoom room out, pop in, you barely have time to get water. You have to be intentional, like you said, about making time to do these things. So, as we are racing to be super productive in the work that we do, how can you remind folks that it's so important to carve out time to really be intentional and practice empathy, active listening? And it's not just an extra flavor that you throw on top of the ice cream. It is a necessity. It is the foundation of it. I still don't, I see people seeing that it's important, but I don't really see enough action being taken to, put time in your calendars, make some time to practice active listening. I love that you bring up the book reference. Something that we do on my project that is called the Positive Force Team is we have film clubs and book clubs where, maybe it's not so easy to talk about these really hard, chewy topics that, bring up all the isms, the sexism, the racism, but we can watch this film. Maybe we can have some writing prompts. maybe we can listen to each other, and we don't necessarily need to, you know, make a statement after, but just having that space to reflect in a fun way too, watching films or reading books, because, you know, it takes a lot to say, hey, let's talk about what happened yesterday in the news, because I can't really work knowing that I don't feel comfortable going outside. So my question to sum it all up is, how can we really be intentional about making time in our calendar to actively promote inclusivity?
I think I like what you said when you said what you focus on is scheduling time to even just watch a movie. Like that's really important. Scheduling that time to watch a movie because what is important to you, you'll make time for. And so for the leaders who are watching us, schedule that time to say, we're going to watch this. Don't need to have a deep discussion about it. Don't need to, break it down. We are going to do this. And then schedule time for your employees that is on the books that they don't have to use to take a break. Schedule that time. You know what? We're not having any meetings on this day. I know we need to make, money. We have this client to serve. We have this product to push. But for this time, 1 hour, 2 hour, we're having blocks of where we're going to allow our employees to take inventory. And then we're going to have a block where we're going to listen so that everybody is heard. And then we're going to have a block where we're going to take time to develop a plan to change. Like you got to put it on your calendar to make it happen. We all have cell phones, Apple, Android, whatever. We all have them. We all are block off. I put on time when my niece is coming to visit. The very least our leaders can do is put in time to say, this is what we're going to do. We're not having any other meetings. This is how we're going to handle it. And again, I love that you said, a book club or a movie or even reading the smallest things. Those are those little things that you make time for that's going to change the whole culture of your organization.
Yes, I love that. I love that we were vibing on that. So let's move to accountability. Let's say that, cool, you got the idea, everyone's into it, but you see that there's a lack of accountability. I want to move to this question here that has to do with self-advocacy as well, so we can kind of put it all in the same pot. So how can we self-advocate if we are the only diverse employees in the organization or in the conversation?
Yeah, I would say come with solutions. That's the biggest thing because nobody wants to hear a bunch of complaints because that is a bias statement, a microaggression that they continually, whoever they is at your organization says, well, all they're doing is complaining. They're not bringing any real solutions. So for you to self-advocate, look at the problem and then be the solution. Write it down, make it clear so that you have the solution to what you see. So if it's a lack of diversity in the upper echelons, say, okay, you know what, this is what I see. So how can we change that? Well, we can have mentorship programs. We can go to colleges and universities or to trade schools, and we can begin to pull those people that we want into our leadership, into our program. We can begin to reach back maybe one generation or two generations and pull them up so that they can see it. And so as you're developing your plan, don't just think about getting things done for you right now, but let's go a step further and say, okay, this is the problem. This is how I know I can fit the solution. And now I have other things that can back that up so that going forward, it won't be a problem. But you have to advocate from a place of having the solution. So that way they can't say, well, they just complain, and have that solution in writing because everything now is done by writing. So have it out so that way you can, one, get the credit for it. So someone else can't take your ideas. That's really important for us and for all of our creatives out there. Make sure you put that in writing so that way they know where it came from.
Absolutely. Say that again, because we gotta protect ourselves as everything is changing. And that brings me to a point. A couple years ago, this whole world of DEI didn't exist. I mean, in theory, it should have, and of course, underground it was, and it has always been. But now, this is a hot topic. What do we need to keep in mind as this is being, a hot button topic, and as there's more of a call to action, let's say, to have more people fill these roles? how people are getting the experience to fill these roles, or how people are, showing a desire to fill these roles. I would just love to hear you speak about it, just like what's happening with the times now. As I said, a couple years ago, it was not a role I didn't see anywhere. Now I'm seeing it everywhere. And I just love your personal opinion on it. And what can we look at? What do we need to be mindful of most of all?
Yeah. I would say the same thing. Right now, there seems to be like an oversaturation of diversity. And I say oversaturation because everybody is grabbing hold to the word, but not understanding that diversity is just the beginning. Like appreciating the differences that we have, from our religious backgrounds to people's sexual preferences to people's ethnicities and races. That's just the beginning. The end goal is inclusion. And so that's what I want people to remember, that diversity is just the beginning. The end goal is to be completely inclusive. And to be completely inclusive, we also have to have equity. So they're all so tied together. But what I see right now is people getting stuck on just diversity, like, oh, everything is so different. Oh, look at all this. Look at all the people of color. Look at all the, I'm like, but stop checking off the boxes. Get to the point where it's inclusive, where we no longer have headlines that says the first African-American person to do this, the first transgender person to do this, the first woman to do that. We have to get to the point where we're inclusive, where it is normal and it is expected that we include everyone. It shouldn't be the first Muslim, or, depending on where you are in the world, the first Christian or the first Buddhist. It should be they're qualified. And we have a long list of people. So I would say we need to get past diversity and get to equity and inclusion. Because at inclusion, then we're making real change.
Yes, I love that. Someone said something the other day that I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful way to put it. So if you're at the table of, you're where all the leaders are, let's say in your organization, instead of saying, how can I bring diversity to the table, it's who are we missing? That's such an open-ended, beautiful question. Who are we missing in this conversation? And how can we, mix this up with it, with intention, and follow through with that, so that we're not just checking a box. I love everything you're saying. I love it. And I just want to praise you for, speaking your truth, and for starting the company that you've started, and for, sharing your wisdom in this way. So thank you so much. Let's move on to this next question, because we got about 10 minutes left. So what resources are available to employees from the state in case organizations fail to keep their DEI promises?
Yeah, so in the United States, and in most states in the United States, they have civil rights agencies and civil rights divisions that actually investigate claims of unlawful discrimination. So for the state of Pennsylvania, that's at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. So if you feel that your company is failing to live up to their DE&I, failing to promote you and other people like you, you can always feel free to contact that agency and file a complaint. You can always file a complaint at the federal level as well, both in employment and in housing, and in public accommodations. The new thing about Pennsylvania is that you are covered wherever you work, live, or go to school. So if you are not being included, or you're being followed around the store every time you go to your local retail store, you can file a complaint based upon that, and they will hold them accountable. All those things are available to people as redress when they are individually harmed, or when a group of people is harmed. So say your company all of a sudden makes this huge change, and you're seeing that the requirements are now affecting all of the people of color there. Well, that's a problem. That means that neutral policy that they just implemented for whatever reason is now having a detrimental effect on a large group of people of color. So you can always file a complaint that way. I would encourage people to do that within their region, in the United States, at the state level and the federal level, and even at other countries. Still have civil rights divisions, still have a way that you can reach out to someone and get help, so that you're not doing it alone.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing those resources. We do have a live question here from Ashley Spear, who writes, and I'll read now. How do you distinguish companies that are inclusive?
Look at their track record. Look at what they have on their website. Look at how they've gone over the last 5, 10 years, not just this year and the last 2 years, because everybody wants to be inclusive in the last 2 years, right? That's the big deal now. I'm inclusive, so come buy my products. I'm inclusive, so come bank with me. No, I need to know, were you committed before the headlines? And then are you committed afterwards? Don't just throw money, because what happened here is everybody who says, well, I'm going to give this amount of dollars to support Black businesses, to support our Asian citizens, to support Spanish businesses. But that's just money. Are you in the trenches? Are your employees volunteering? Are you giving time for them to volunteer? Are you creating scholarships for the next generation? Are you doing all of those things? Because talk is cheap, but are you in it for the long haul?
Yes, we can put that on a t-shirt and give it out for free because we need to remember that. I see I'm getting a lot of things in my inbox these days about, you know, how certain companies are doing a lot of lip service. It's just what you're speaking to now. It's like, okay, what are you really doing to move the madness? Or are you just feeding into it by, you know, giving some money or, you know, putting a nice hashtag? Of course, every little bit counts, but of course you want to see the integrity behind it as well. Let's move on to this next question here. From your experience working with the Human Relations Commission, what were some reoccurring problems you'd encounter?
A lot of people just didn't think about it because it didn't affect them. This was just our policy. What do you mean there's something wrong with it? There's a lot wrong with it. And the fact that you didn't think about it says that that's a bigger problem. You know, it's like, what do you mean? What's wrong with saying that? Everything is wrong with saying that. If you don't recognize it, then you are the problem. And so what I saw was a lot of people just not even thinking about it because it didn't affect them, because they went along with the status quo. This is the way the operation always worked. This is the way this policy always worked. I don't understand what the problem this, or in the case of harassments, this is the way this person always was. Why are you upset? Because it's a problem and you should have been upset. So there was just a complete lack of intentionality, not necessarily malice, but just kind of like didn't think about it. Just nonchalant, like we really didn't think about it because it didn't affect you, so it didn't bother you. But now that it's brought to your attention, we need you to do this and we need you to make change. And a lot of times people were just kind of flabbergasted, like, what? This is happening here? I didn't know. I didn't understand. You know, can you help me? Can you all come out and do training? I just need some guidance. And that's really what it was. Rarely did we have someone who was intentional. I mean, you do get those kind of off the wall things and you're just kind of like, okay, you and I both know that was really wrong. But really, it was just a whole lack of like awareness. And that really speaks to the whole community because the agency serves the entire state. So that lack of awareness was just affecting one state in the United States. And so multiply that across all of our states, all of our territories, and then multiply that across the influence that the United States has across the world. And you see why we are where we are.
Yes, I'm so glad that you put that at the end of your statement as well, because I'm living outside of the States. I've been living outside the States for a while. And I often get in these kind of debates with my partner about, she'll say like, oh, but that's just the States. And I'm like, but the States has an influence on the world. I grew up, I mean, I was born in Los Angeles, and look at what Hollywood does to, let's just say what how Hollywood portrays a woman of color. And let's go deeper and say a Black woman. So then I go to another country and I have to rely on what Hollywood is showing you for you to know what to call me. I've been called all kinds of names. So it's taking that the responsibility, you know, as well to be aware because you do have influence. So I love that you're hitting the nail on the head there. Here's a really beautiful question that I'd love to hear your response to, and for, you know, to encourage this person who's looking to do something different. So this question reads, I would like to change the direction of my career to move towards a role focused on inclusion and diversity. How do I do that?
Just take the leap. Just take the leap. There are so many college courses now here in the States, and I'm sure elsewhere. There are so many online things that you can do. Just take the leap and just begin to reading, begin to do your research, reach out to other people who are already in the field. There are several organizations, both nationally here and internationally. Most of them are all international now, where you can reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in getting into this field. What can I do? So they are out there. Just take the leap. Don't be afraid. Or as they say, do it afraid. Do it scared. It's okay. If you fall, get up and keep moving, but do it anyway. Start by just finding one article, finding one book, and then connecting with the international groups, because everything and everybody is online now. You mentioned that you now live outside of the States, so we can talk to anybody and get the necessary resources that we have. But there are some out there. There's like the International Association of Human Rights Organizations that's out there. There is the International Diversity Council. And even if they're located only inside the United States, they will definitely welcome members outside of the United States, because when you're in diversity, you realize that it's bigger than just here. I know we in the States like to think that we're the best. However, the world is a big, big place, and problems of this come across the entire globe. And so any organizations just here in the US will welcome all of our international members. So just take the leap and come on and join the party. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, a lot of hard work, a lot of fun, but like again, you meet people like us that we want to make a change, and we've got storytelling to do here, lots of stories to bring up from things as what I call the B side of history, things that were left out of the storytelling process. We only get one side of the history. So we get a chance to speak with our elders, to speak with other people in different communities, and like you said, pick up a book that maybe wouldn't call our attention before, but just to learn intentionally about someone else. So we've got about 2 minutes left. So I love to pass the mic back to you to hit on anything you would like to cover in the next minute and a half. Any kind of encouragement, food for thought you can leave our live audience now. And just thank you again for speaking with us today. And I just want to give the last 2 minutes to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was my pleasure. But what I want to tell people is don't give up. Like, it's a long, hard fight. Sometimes I wake up and be like, am I even making a difference? Am I making a difference? But the reality is, because we woke up, yes, you are making a difference. Because you chose your vocation, yes, you are making a difference. So don't give up in the middle, fight through to the end. And always find allies. Like, we don't have to do it alone. Superwoman is only on DC Comics, right? She's make-believe. So make sure you get yourself a good tribe, a good group of people to support you. And that's what I have, is a good tribe of people that will hold me accountable, find out what my vision is, and help me to accomplish it. So don't go it alone. Get good groups of people. You can find me on LinkedIn, just at Jinada Rochelle on LinkedIn. So find me there. You can find me at Jinada Rochelle on Instagram. I will be glad to partner with you, just give you any ideas, give you the help that my friends give to me. That's what I want to leave everyone. Don't do it alone, but yet still do it. And when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make what you like to drink, whether that's sangria, cherry limeade, Diet Coke, whatever. Make something different. Just make something.
Yes, just make something and make something different. Beautiful words to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Jinada, for sharing wisdom with us. And we've got some folks who are continuing to write questions, but I would refer you to reach out to her on LinkedIn and her website that she just mentioned before, so you can follow up and continue to ask your questions. Thank you so much again for spending time with us today. Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right.
Yes.
Yay.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jinada. Thank you so much, Mariella, for such a great conversation with a lot of really awesome insights that you provided today. So thank you both for being here.